All right.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Shanae Nicole, his millennial housewife, and today I have a special guest, and this is who's his? Is my husband. This is Danelle.
What's up, everybody?
So today we're just on here to talk a little bit about relationships and marriage. And honestly, I'm not sure exactly what direction this is gonna go. We're just freestyling it, and this is not something that I'm comfortable doing. But because I got my best friend with me, I think it's just gonna be fun. So that is the plan. So let's get right into it. So me and Danelle, we were actually just talking about relationships and social media and things like that. So we just decided to turn on the camera because so many times we are having conversations with each other and we be like, dang, this would be good to share with people. So we've been married for, it'll be 6 years in July.
Wow. So real quick, you know how people talk about men not remembering dates and stuff like that? That's my wife. Like
I do that every
July
time.
19th.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes I say the wrong date or year just to test her. She get it right sometimes.
Okay,
Sometimes she just be like, yep. Like no.
No, but okay, so we will be 6 years this year. And
6 years.
we've had different things that we've gone through over those years, and one of those things, of course, is guarding our eye gate and really just protecting our marriage from outside influences, specifically lust. And I actually have written a blog about guarding lust and preventing it from getting into your marriage, and I'll put that in the description box below. But ultimately, just talking about the importance of really guarding your marriage, especially in this day and age when we have television, social media, and all of these outside stimuli that just can really wreak havoc in your marriage, and you don't realize how much of an influence that it has over you.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's so many opportunities now to really allow lust in through whatever you're watching, whatever you're scrolling, and even whatever you're listening to. Like, it's just the opportunities are there 24/7, and if you don't know how to guard against those, you are gonna have some serious complications in your marriage at one time or another.
And that comes with, like, it starts when you're single, obviously, right? When you don't have control of these thoughts and control of what it is that you're watching and bringing in, that is not going to necessarily get easier or go away. Like saying, okay, well, I'll stop looking at men, or for guys, I'll stop looking at women once I'm married, then it'll be easier. No, that's not going to go away just because you're married. I'm sure this one can attest to that.
I mean, because this is something I started with when I was single. I definitely, I talked to one of the guys by trade. I'm in the fitness industry, went to school for exercise science and everything. So I worked in a gym for the beginning of my young adult life. And one of the other trainers there, he was like, once I met the woman that I knew I was going to marry, I trained myself to stop looking at other women. And I was like, wow. Like, really, because from when you're younger, it's kind of like you're almost taught or encouraged, like, to if a woman walk by with a nice body or something, you're like, so exactly, so you're kind of trained to do that, and it's like one of those things that for so long it's a natural thing. It's almost like you don't even think about it, you just do it. Mm-hmm. So I really had to train myself, especially in that environment, to stop doing that. And it's not easy. It's something that is a constant battle, just because, again, like, now, I mean, these doggone leggings, you got in the gym, you got women working out in sports bras, so it's like, it's like, so it's overload. And then you go to the internet and there's Instagram and all of that stuff, so like, you really have to have a strategy in place to make sure that you're not doing it. Because I thought, hey, well, once I get married and I'm having sex, well, then I'm not going to be tempted to do that because I'll be satisfied in that way. Well, no. That's just, I wish it worked that way, but that's just not the reality.
Yeah, you know, well, okay, so I'll speak to that. But why is it important? You know, we're talking about looking and all that, and it's like, well, what's the problem with looking, right? You know, the Bible talks about how as a man thinking in his heart, so is he. Mm-hmm. And then if he just looketh upon a person and thinking the wrong thing, like looking upon a woman, and I put the scripture in there, but if just doing that, you're committing adultery in your heart. And so this is why it's important, because our goal as Christians and becoming the best version of ourselves is to really guard our hearts, so we don't allow lust, we don't allow different things to come into our lives and it morph into something that can really be detrimental to your life, to your marriage, and other relationships. So looking, you know, that morphs into something more. You know what I'm saying? And just think about it. Like, if you're really honest with yourself, what has, you know, for guys just looking at other women, what that has done. You know, okay, what am I looking for? You know, mm-hmm. and where do my thoughts go when I'm looking? You know what I'm saying? Am I taking a mental picture for when I'm ready to go look at that porno? Or when I'm ready to masturbate, or whatever mm-hmm. that is, you know what I mean? Like, you're taking that in, but what's the purpose of it? And now that I'm looking, am I to the point where I can't control that now? Like, I have to look, you know what I'm saying?
The looking, the lusting, like, it just really prepares you for whatever action you're going to take. Like, you know, the Bible talks about when times of pressure come, whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you do, that's what's in your heart. So if you're continually lusting on women or men, when the opportunity presents itself, which is the temptation, that's what you're most likely going to do. And if you don't even go through all the way with it, even going an inch is too much. You know, when you're married, there's boundaries that you don't cross. You know, whether it be physical or emotional, you don't want to cross those boundaries. So you don't want to train yourself day in and day out to lust, to really just meditate on anyone in a sexual nature other than your spouse. Because if we're really being honest here, like, you don't know what you'll do until temptation actually presents itself. Like, you have an idea of what you're gonna do, but you have to be practiced at it already. You know, like, I'm practiced. Before I even got married, I practiced turning my head, you know, and intentionally not looking at a woman that, you know, that I found attractive. And what it did is it helped once I got married. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was perfect, but I was practiced at it. Because if the temptation ever did come, I wanted to know that I did have the strength not to do it. Because if you don't have the strength, if you don't have the ability to not look, then how are you going to have the ability to say no if somebody is really giving you the opportunity to sleep with them, or to do, or to accept whatever they want to do for you, you know? So you have to make sure that you're practiced at getting that done. And if you're not, letting that lust in will certainly increase the likelihood that you will fall in that situation. And at the very least, it will change the dynamics that you have with your spouse in that department.
And that's what I was actually going to say too, is because we're also thinking about our spouses, you know what I'm saying? And I know for me as a woman, like, that made me feel really uncomfortable, especially, like, you know, I came with my own issues and one of them, I was just very self-conscious already. And so knowing that, you know, he might be looking or something like that, and it never got to the point, like he said, he did practice this early on, but there were just certain instances where, you know, I may have I've seen him do it, or I'll wonder, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I just remember how that made me feel. Like, it amplifies what your spouse might already be going through. You know, if she's already, or him, you know, if they're already feeling a certain type of way about how they look or their body or whatever that is, and they see the person that loves them, and them looking at somebody that's not them, it's like, okay, well, shoot, You know, what's wrong with me? Am I not enough? Okay, he prefers that. She prefers this. You know, because quite honestly, women, we can do this too. And a lot of times, you know, we downplay it. And we actually will be more likely to do it in front of our husbands. Like, you know, if somebody comes across the TV and they like, oh, there go my second husband. You know, there go my TV boo. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's not really cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're actually lusting after this man. Like, you're putting your affections on him over what he looks like, or maybe the character that he's playing in this movie. Right. You're like putting this at a standard when, you know, you have a husband, and that could be making him feel a certain type of way. You know, he may not say it. And ultimately, I guess the point that I really want to get across is that this isn't pleasing to God. You know what I'm saying? Like, we live in a era right now where it's like anything goes, and, you know, we kind of downplay these things. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, this is just how it is. Like, you look on TV and the commercial is talking like kind of, it'd be a plumbing commercial, but it's like talking about sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of times that we live in, and we kind of downplay it. But, you know, God's standard is his standard, always will be, you know, his standard. And we just have to, if we're going to grow and really make the most of what it is that God has for us, I think that we really need to make sure that we are putting things where he wants them, you know?
Yeah, and this is about having a strong marriage, you know, and a lot of times, you know, for instance, like, we don't watch movies with nudity in it. We certainly don't watch pornography or anything like that together, and
or separate.
Yeah, so like, and you know, and we don't even listen to music that is really sexually explicit. So, and I can remember one instance where we were watching a movie with my brother and his girlfriend, and like, you know, it was an unexpected nude scene, and I turned my head, and he was like, "Man, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't look at nudity." And he was like, "Okay." And I know that's a lot of people's reaction, and probably as you're watching this, you're like, they really like on some other stuff. They must got some real issues. But when you really think about it, I mean, look at the rate of divorce, you know, and you know, so there's something to this, because a lot of people, they're not really communicating with their spouse. Like, you should want to know, like, okay, does it make you uncomfortable when we watch this? You know what I'm saying? Because you are maybe uncomfortable with me seeing another woman nude, or you're uncomfortable with me seeing, you know, if she was to ask me, are you uncomfortable with me seeing male nudity? Like, you want to know these things, and really that shouldn't be a hard sacrifice that, oh, I can't look at nudity in films because it makes my wife uncomfortable. Like, is the nudity in that film that important? You know, or you know, and you have to really start evaluating this, because, you know, again, there's just so much opportunity for it that it really can, like, cloud your memories, your memory bank, you know. And guys know what I'm talking about. Your memory bank, like, you can recall, you know, different situations that you've been in, or different experiences that you've had, if you really think about it. And if you continue to put these images in your head, well, how much room is there going to be for your spouse for you to meditate on them and their beauty? You know, and that's ultimately the only memories you should be recalling at any point in time, you know, because if you're steady putting these images in, then that's going to bleed over into your sex life with your spouse. And that is just straight disrespectful.
Yeah. And I mean, even if your spouse doesn't know that you're doing this, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is it doing to you? You know what I'm saying? As an individual, what is it doing to your, like, now you're not attracted to your spouse.
Or just less attracted.
Yeah. Or not aroused or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that happens. So, okay, now what?
Right. And that's where it comes, where, like, it's not that you're uninterested in sex, but you become uninterested in sex with your spouse because of what you've been looking at. Maybe it's pornography, or maybe you've been looking at too many of the models on Instagram, and you're desiring that, and your spouse doesn't fit that exact physical description. So now it's like you're not really aroused or as attracted to that person like you used to be. And that's a serious problem, because now you're not able to express your love, the fullness of your love, the way God intended it to your spouse.
So speaking of social media, social media is specifically Instagram is like so big right now, and there are so many things that you can see on Instagram. Like, we both happened to just see a post last night, and it was like, babe, did you see that? I was like, oh yeah, like,
right. And this is from somebody that we both respect. Like, we both respect them, and really didn't expect this type of post. Like, I'm not at the point where I'm gonna unfollow this person,
right,
or anything like that. But it was just like,
and you may have to do that. We'll get into that.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, it was kind of like, So, like, with Instagram, like, what is the line? What is the extent to where you do have to say, okay, I'm ready to unfollow this person now? You know what I mean? Like, what type of standards should we put on ourselves, and to what extreme? Because I've seen some people, like, people that are married, and they're liking other women, and it's like their posts, and it just be like a cute, sexy post, and it's like, well, why you liking that though? Like, I know you better not be. I hope he got enough sense not to like it, even if he seeing it.
I used to see that too, and I'm like, bro, you really are you out here, man. You just like whatever. But with that, you have to police yourself, and we had this conversation before. You have to learn how to police yourself. If you're like me, being a fitness guy, I'm gonna follow men and women that are in fitness, and I purpose myself to only follow people that I think were doing legitimate fitness stuff. Like, I wasn't following no Instagram butt models or nothing like that, but I was following people, men and women, that actually lift, that actually teach the proper technique and form, and have some type of education to their page. But even with that, the part where policing yourself comes into play is where, if this person is attractive, you got to be honest with yourself. Like, is this person attractive, in my opinion? And when you start to look at the post, and it's not like, oh, like, I'm just getting, like, education from it, or like, okay, yeah, I agree with that, but you're looking at, like, dang, she kind of strapped. Then it's like, okay, I maybe need to unfollow or mute these posts until I get my mind back right, because that could begin
that opens
to start
the
at
door
less.
for looking at it more.
I think you do. You have to be selective about who you follow, because this is almost like the company you keep, especially if you are scrolling daily down Instagram, Facebook, or whatever social media platform you're using. I guess we're sticking on Instagram because that's where you're going to see mostly, all pictures and videos, and if you think about it, if you're following all of these people that you are you're physically attracted to them, well, you could be cheating on your spouse daily with multiple different people, whether you're a man or a woman. If you're following, 1,000 people on Instagram, and half of them you're following because they look good, well, now you're scrolling, and every picture that you lust on, like, you just cheated on your spouse 20 times because you didn't like then meditated on 20 different pictures of whomever. For whatever reason, they got, if it a male, you got nice shoulders, nice chest, or whatever. Oh man, like, look at that. I wish such and such had that. I'm gonna tell them to get in the gym today. Or, dang, look at her butt. Like, so you gotta really, be honest with yourself in that regard. Like, am I really getting into these people physically? Right. Or am I actually getting something out of the content that they post?
So, like, is it really that deep? Like, you don't take all of that. Well, what he's talking about with policing yourself and being honest with yourself, like, if it's really that deep. Like, if your spouse comes in and you like hurry up and, you know, scroll real quick or go to like close up the page, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that deep. Or if, you know, you find yourself like looking back at photos, or, you know what I'm saying, like you said, recalling those things, then it is that deep. And it may not always be that deep, but right now, you know, it may require you to really pay attention to that, because you don't really want that to slide, because that just opens the door for like other things deeper in your marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just don't want that. You want to protect your marriage. Like, Satan already is trying to like get into your marriage. He wants to destroy it. He wants to break you guys up. He wants you not having sex. He wants all these things, you know, that can really drive you, you know, a wedge between you and your spouse. That's what he's trying to do. And even ladies, like, you know, we have to make sure we're watching who we're following. And that, yes, men, but also women, like, especially if you know, like, you have different, like, I know I can speak for myself, you know what I'm saying, because I also am into fitness and things like that. But there were certain people that I unfollowed because they were showing too much, and this was women, you know, and it was like doing something to me for my self-esteem. You know, if I'm looking and it's like, you know what I mean, if it's making you feel less than, or making you feel like, okay, well, like, I wish that I had this, or I need to do this, you know, that's another part of you needing to check yourself. And if you need to unfollow people, unfollow them, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no shame in that. You follow who you choose to follow. And the purpose that you're following them for, you have to check that. And then if, like you said, even if it's like you're getting the information that you need, but if it's the posts that are inappropriate, they deserve an unfollow. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, this is about your emotional, mental, and most importantly, spiritual health. You know, like, there's other ways to get the information. Let's just be honest. Like, you don't have to follow somebody on Instagram, even if they are super intelligent or whatever. Like, I unfollowed a PhD because they was getting off the hook with their posts. And it's like, yeah, that's a PhD in my field, but I can get the information another way. So it's not that deep. But for me to unfollow them. But see, the issue becomes like when you start to defend it. If you feel like you have to defend it.
Because talk about when we had the conversation. Remember?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I said though. Like,
okay.
Yeah, like,
but you were defending it basically like for what he was saying about, well, I'm getting information from it.
Right.
And this is like for real credible fitness information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, if you can be honest and say like, okay, I'm not getting nothing else but this information. Okay. Then
what was okay? Like two, because I remember the two people. So.
Okay.
I ain't gonna say, no, I'm not gonna say no name, but so one of them legitimately was just like, you know what I'm saying, like what she do is sweet, like she got good information, she's involved in some of the same like organizations that I got accredited with, cool. The other one, it was like she was also very good and all those same things, but she was more, I guess, like physically attractive. In my opinion, and it was like some of her posts came up, and it was like, okay, wow, you know what I'm saying? So then it was like, all right, so just gotta hit the unfollow, you know?
Yeah, just be honest with yourself.
And I think more than anything, like I unfollowed, and this is the part that she didn't like. Like I unfollowed just because she wanted me to unfollow. Like I hadn't yet just said like, okay, like I had to do this for me, but I did it for her, and I think that's important. Like. That is a part in it. Like, you have to care that how your spouse feels. You know, like, even if you don't get it, you want to keep the peace in your marriage. And part of keeping the peace is having being able to sacrifice. You know, like, if I felt like, man, I'm getting such good information, like, I really don't want to do this. In reality, I know where to go and get that same information, and it doesn't need to come through these people. So for me to unfollow costs me nothing. Maybe I do a little bit of more research on my own, so it's a little bit more time, but that versus you know, hey, I'm gonna just keep it convenient for me and follow these people, and then my wife being unhappy about it, that's not a good trade off.
Yes, and the thing that I wanted to get across to him was like I wanted him to get to the point where we're talking about policing himself, like, because I felt like in that instance I'm policing him, and you know he's doing me a favor, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll do it because you tripping, you know what I'm saying? and that I didn't like that, you know what I'm saying?
But
it's
let's
like,
be honest,
I want
though,
you to be able to do that on your own.
So, but let's be honest though, you have to be willing to accept too, like, okay, if I say yes, I'm doing this because you want me to, like, let that be the first step. Like, sometimes you're not gonna get the whole everything you want.
And
right
this is
away.
true because this has been like it was not just like an overnight thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like ongoing, we've talked different times about social media and like what we follow and, you know, guarding our eye gate and all of that. And then recently, probably within the last few months or so, that's when it was like we happened to have a conversation and it just clicked for him, and it was like, thank you, Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Because it's sometimes hard, but like you said, the first step. But also, it doesn't have to necessarily be like celebrities, you know what I'm saying? Or people like that you're saying where you're getting information. It might be one of your friends that you need to unfollow. Like, oh, well, this is my friend. I've known him since high school, or I've known her, like, and you're defending. Like, I mean, this is just my friend or whatever. And it's like, even in that, even if you know them, you know what I'm saying? And if you're having those thoughts, because this is what it's all about, checking those thoughts. And you know, those images, they stimulate different thoughts. So if you're having those thoughts, even if you know them, it's like, okay, I'm going to unfollow them.
Right.
You know?
Because again, it's about that mental health, that emotional health, that spiritual health. And if you can't be honest with yourself, you know, if you're having those type of thoughts about this person, like if you're starting to like imagine this person, like, okay, you seeing them with their shirt off, and now you seeing them with a shirt on, you're like, dang, I'm looking forward to the next shirt off picture.
Does that happen?
You know what I'm saying? Like, then you know, really you probably need to unfollow that person.
Yeah.
And you know, again, it just comes down to, okay, is this going to add to my marriage, or is it gonna take away from it? Because you think you can compartmentalize, but you can't. You know, you can't compartmentalize this, like, because thoughts are gonna come. We know that the enemy comes. You know, he attacks us in our minds. Like, if you are like opening a door for that, you're just making it that much easier. If you're not being honest with yourself about who you're following and the type of images and things that you're putting into your eye gate, it's going to be a constant battle. And that's the part that people don't like to hear. Like, oh yeah, like, man, so you telling me that, oh, if I lust, then, you know, I've already committed adultery? Well, shoot, man, I'm having thoughts all day. Like, this is impossible. Well, it becomes more and more possible to not lust when you close the door to those images, and then the thoughts become less and less. And of course, you pair this with, you know, renewing your mind in the Word of God on a consistent basis. I mean, what's the word saying, Joshua? You know, meditate on the Word day and night. You know, you do that, and it helps. Like, no, it's never gonna just 100% stop to where you have no thoughts that come to you, but they'll become fewer, and you'll know exactly what to do with them.
Right.
You know, so it's not one of those things where it gets easier, but you do get stronger.
And then also you're able to starting to recognize what the thoughts are that aren't yours. So like in that, you know, sometimes we think, okay, if I'm thinking about, like, sometimes you can be just doing something randomly and then a thought comes in, you know, and it might be about another guy, another girl. And it's like you meditate on it for a while, and then it's like before you know, you realize, like, dang, I done, like, that was like too much, you know what I'm saying? It's like starting to recognize when you're doing that, so you can, those thoughts are not yours, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's Satan putting things in your head, and he can use the very images and stuff that you're taking in to do that. But just starting to recognize when your thoughts do go tilt, so that you can take those and kind of cast them down. Say like, no, okay, I'm not thinking that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I only got eyes for my husband. I only have eyes for my wife. Or, you know, I'm choosing not to meditate on that. I'm gonna meditate on this instead, because your thoughts are what become your actions ultimately.
Right. And let me be clear. This is for marrieds and singles.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're practicing this as a single, you're going to do it when you get married. And then that's when it becomes an issue. If your spouse is like, nah, I don't like that. You know, then you have to do all the work right then and maybe make that change even quicker like that, because you need to keep the peace in your marriage. So you need to start now at whatever point you're at. So I guess now maybe this is a good time to talk to people. Like, if you are having these struggles, like, what can you do to start to, you know, pull away from that? You know, because we want to ultimately turn away from, because this is sexual sin. Like, lusting is sexual sin. So we want to start to turn away from that. But what's the first step?
Well, I think first of all, just being able to recognize like that you have been doing this, because if you don't recognize it as being wrong, then you don't have any reason to change, right? So once you realize like, okay, I have been doing this, I have been thinking the wrong things, or, you know, looking at the wrong things. The first thing I would say is repent. Like, Lord, forgive me for doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to hurt my spouse. I don't want to do this. Even if I'm single, I know that this is not your best for me, right? And asking God, okay, Father, help me now to move forward. What is it that I need to do? You need to ask him, because it may be different for you as opposed to us, or, you know, vice versa. Like, we decided that we were going to be extra, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? So you might need to be
and we
extra.
hold ourselves accountable. One of the things we do, sit here, and if I can't scroll my Instagram feed with her, then it's something wrong with that. You know, so, you know, you have to really make sure that there are no secrets. Like, I'm not in the bed like, you know, like that. You know, like, I just sit there, and if she want to look on there with me, she can. Whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you know, so
that's really good. Yeah,
I think having some accountability, whether you're single or married, it is a good step to have. Like, if you are in a public place,
because y'all, I have definitely like been in church and I open my Instagram page and it'll be like skin. I'll be like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like fitness stuff, but like that's what made me actually unfollow a lot of like fitness people. I'm like, okay, I can't be out here like this, you know. So policing, okay, allowing, first of all, repenting. Second, you know, asking God to help you and showing you ways, because the Bible says, like, if you ask for wisdom, He'll give it to you. So He wants you.
That's James
to
4:5. He
wants you to like succeed in this area. So He's gonna help you. So now, once you ask Him and you give Him the license, like, okay, you have permission now to tell me what to do, then He'll start showing you things. And that's when it comes into, okay, what are you willing to do? Like, some of the things that He shows you, it may seem like super extra. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I want you to work out from home for a little while. Or, you know what I'm saying? That might be so crazy. It sounds crazy, but if that's what you need to do. And like what he's,
or go at a different time, you know, like,
right. And we do that.
Yeah, like I intentionally go super early when all the hot girls are still asleep. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that way it's less temptation for me to be surveying, you know, the gym, you know. So, but one thing I don't want to skate over, and I think this is really important, like, the reason that, you know, this even happens is because we have a natural desire to be intimate, to have sex. But the important thing is that we keep it within the confines of marriage. And this is everything. So the desire for sex is also the desire to, like, meditate on, you know, the beauty of the opposite sex. But that needs to be your wife. Those images needs to be your wife. Like, when I'm thinking about, you know, the beauty of a woman, I'm picturing my wife and the beauty that she has. I'm not thinking about random woman, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we do have these natural desires, and there's nothing wrong with that within the way that God designed it. When it starts to bleed outside of that, that's when it becomes a problem, and that's where you have to address it. You know, there's not just okay, like, well, like, this is just how guys are. Like, I think that's something that people say to make it easy to kind of give yourself an out. Like, well, I just have this natural desire, like, to do this. Like, well, is that, you know, is it scriptural to do it in the way that you're doing it? Like, it talks about it, but it talks about you doing it God's way. And when you don't, there's plenty of scripture that talks about when you don't do it God's way, like the different consequences. You know, it's sexual sin is the only sin where you sin, and you sin against your body. So you open yourself up to that pain, sickness, disease, and all these other things. And you know, when I learned that is when I really was like, okay, man, I really got to make some changes, because I don't want to open myself up to, you know, to disease and to different things going wrong in my body. Because, I mean... Because
everything is connected. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not even just talking about, like, sexually transmitted. We're talking about, like, sickness. You know what I'm saying? Like, things that it's all connected, you know? And I think about when I was talking to my blog, like, you know, it's just like with school. Like, you could be doing well in one area in school and then failing in another area, but it all brings your grade down because of the fail. You know what I'm saying? So... just failing, your GPA. So failing in this area, it will affect other areas in your life. You may not be able to pinpoint that that's what that is, but it's all like connected. It's all intertwined. You know what I'm saying? So this is important, you know. And like you say, you don't want to open yourself up, and it's not to be fearful or anything like that. And you know, God does have mercy and things like that. But when you know, you're held accountable. You know what I'm saying? And
so it affects you. I mean, there's been celebrities who've talked about an addiction to pornography and stuff like that, and these are
it affects their life. Like it starts out like something very private. You know, you might do at night or whatever, and then it escalates to, okay, I want to do this during the day. I want to do it whenever I have free time.
And it consumes you. Know? Because sin is never satisfied.
Exactly.
So you give it an inch, it's gonna take a mile, and it's gonna continue to take more and more. The more attention you give it, the more you feed that fire, the more it's gonna grow. But you have to extinguish it, and that's why, like, we sound extra, but trust me, it's not extra. It's necessary if you want to really put that fire out, and you know, really be that person that God designed you to be, and be successful in your marriage, be successful in the other areas of your life. Because, you know, if you are a man, I'm speaking to guys, and women, you know, if you are in this situation and, you know, you're dealing with lust, and it's starting to consume more and more of your time, you're spending more time on Instagram scrolling, you're spending more time watching videos. Well, this is taking away your personal development time. It's taking away from time with God. You know, you're not maximizing what you can do in your professional life as a result, because you're filling your mind with all of these different images and stuff that you don't need, you know, in order to please the flesh, and it's taking away, it's eating up your potential, and you don't want that to happen. So we got off big time.
Yeah, we.
But I think that was important.
Yeah,
but this ain't my channel, so I need to chill out.
No, we won, baby. So this is your channel too. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. So what is another way that you can help, kind of, if you find yourself in that situation? We talked about repenting. We talked about praying, ask God, and allowing Him to show you different areas that you may need to adjust or tweak. You may need to apologize to your spouse or have a conversation with your spouse. If you're married, like, have this conversation. Ask them, like, okay, babe, what you think about this? Like, let's go through who it is that I'm following. And I mean, women too, you know what I'm saying? Because women be following people they don't need to follow too. Like, we be doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, okay, babe, let's look at who I'm following, you know? And it could be a very uncomfortable conversation, because I mean, it's right there, but this is what you're looking at every day. And if you want to change, we talked about accountability, and sometimes I know I was his accountability. He said that he wanted me to hold him accountable in different areas. And if you have a friend, you know, they can be your accountability partner too, but who better than your spouse? Because you know what I'm saying, like they're the ones that have to do life with you in that way. So it's like, okay, what is it that makes you comfortable? You know, what is it that I need to do that's gonna help our marriage? You know, and then talking about things like, okay, I'm not having that conversation, like I'm not attracted to you right now, or I don't know how exactly you would say that, but you know what I'm saying, as you pray, you know, God will open up doors, because if that's an issue, and that maybe is why you start looking in the first place, you know, maybe it was an instance where, okay, there's been children involved, and now, you know, my body's different and it's changed, you know what I'm saying, and or he has changed, you know, maybe he stopped working, or, you know, different things, situations that have happened that has made you kind of like start looking in other areas. Well, there's a root to that, you know what I'm saying, and the root may be a conversation that you guys need to have, like, okay, this is the truth,
like
this
what's
is,
going on,
like
where are we at, you know. A good way, because guys, I would not recommend you telling your wife that you're not attracted to them. I would, you know, just get an assessment of where we're at. Like, you know, babe, how are you feeling, like, physically? Like, is there, do you have any, you know, if they have fitness goals or anything like that, is there any area that I can help you with? Any area that, you know, you need support in or encouragement? You know, because she may be having a tough time. I know after, you know, Shanae had our first, our child, she definitely was having a tough time getting back active. I mean, her body went through a lot of different changes, and I had to be very supportive. And patient, yeah. But see, this is the big thing. This is the thing that you miss, where when you start to renew your mind, start to spend time with God, I pray that, you know, He would help me, that I would be more in love with my wife every year of our marriage, that I would be more attracted to her physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually every year, you know. And thus far, He has answered that prayer, and it is like, I think it's one of the easiest prayers for Him to answer, because we also made a commitment to be the best versions of ourselves every year that we've been married, and we haven't been perfect with that, but the effort is there. And then you couple that with prayer, like, Lord, I want to only have eyes for my wife. And I think that's the next step, I believe, is like praying this out to God, like, what is it that you want? And that has to be a heart's desire, you know. Like, do you really only want to have eyes for your spouse, or do you want to, or is it in your heart that you want to lust? You know, I think you have to be honest with that, and you have to solve that first, because if you haven't really settled in your heart that, hey, you know what, I want to just love my spouse and only my spouse. I want to just, like, yes, like, there's always going to be attractive women, but that's not what that's not what I'm meditating on. I like, you see it and it's like, oh, okay, you know. But I know that when it comes to me meditating on the beauty of a woman, that it's reserved. That mind space is for my wife and my wife only. But you have to get to that point where that's what you want, and that may start with you talking to God about it. Like, Lord, help me in this department. Like, I'm if you're at a place where you're already lusting a lot, God will help to change your heart if you give Him permission to. You know, so
to will and do His good pleasure. Right. And I mean, these tips are not in order, because that might actually be one of the first things. Like, you know, you're talking to God, you know, you're praying, and He's showing you things. So yeah, that's actually really good. And
for singles, that's something you want to do before. Like, I remember praying, like, Lord, if the woman is not for me, uproot her out of my life. And no kidding, like, seriously, I would not have interest in a woman for more than like a couple of days. Like, I might think she attractive, and we might talk a few times, and then be like, but again, it has to do with what you have in your heart and what you really want. And I knew at that time I was really ready to be married. And you're not, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of assess whether or not you're ready to be married. But one of them is, are you ready to only have eyes for that person?
Right, not just have sex
Mm-hmm.
with one person.
And love that person like on all levels. And you know, because the thing is, I'm not going to even admire somebody else's intelligence above my wife. Like, I'm never gonna like put them above my wife. Like, yes, I can definitely give props to somebody else and congratulate them and be happy for them, but I don't esteem any woman higher than my wife.
And this is really good, I think, for us ladies too, because a lot of times with us, it's not so much the physical, but with other men and stuff like that, but it'll be like status or, like you said, intelligence, or just what is it, their station, you know, in life. So it's like, oh, why can't you, or other pastors, you know what I mean, their spirituality, like, why can't you just be more like this person? Oh, I wish he could be, you know what I mean, so and so is so smart, he's always, you know, talking about this and doing this. Like, you know, as women, I think that area can be a lot rougher on us, you know what I mean, like looking at what another guy may have, and or what they can achieved. Provide for you, or, you know, how they may treat their wife, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, I wish I had that, I want that type of relationship, and you start to really covet that, as opposed to admiring it, or just being like, okay, that's nice. But then you start to compare. You comparing, you know, your relationship with what you see this other man has. So you just really have to watch that. And in that instance, these same things, the same things that we're talking about that can help with lust, I mean, you would obviously apply it to that same situation, because it's the same thing, just
it's still lust. It's just lusting after something different.
Yeah. So
I think we might have exhausted the topic.
Yeah. Okay. So, guys, I hope that this really helped you. It is our heart to just really help you become the best version of yourselves as we become the best version of ourselves. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.